Oh, have we got a good show for you tonight. Before we get into anything, let's check out some stories from the news. A new study has shown that what women really want in a partner is someone just like their brother. So, can you imagine how confused Caitlyn Jenner's sisters are? In Britain, a 1-year-old boy was prescribed antidepressants. The family has come forward to kind of defend the doctor, saying, well, this was to help him quit smoking. Recently, some parents were shocked when their Alexa recited porn phrases instead of nursery rhymes to their toddler. You know, kind of like Mary had a little lamb, then a dog, then a donkey. In case you didn't know, a little fact, Finding Dory holds the record for the largest animated opening ever. The only opening that was any bigger belonged to Kim Kardashian. So this last story I dedicate to the late great Norm Macdonald. So do you guys like sex dolls? Well, if you do, you'll be really interested in this one. So do you know what the #1 selling sex doll of all time is? Well, it happens to be the Marilyn Monroe doll. So the manufacturer says that more realistic skin textures and laser scanning to produce more realistic body features are to blame. Do you know what the #2 selling sex doll is? Well, it's the Nicole Brown Simpson. Most people say that it's because of her immense beauty, but we all know it's because of all the extra holes. May you live forever, Norm Macdonald. We got a great show for you coming up. Stick around. Hey, so if you're looking to get a clownfish, I've got the perfect video here for you. I'm going to go over the basic care tips for you so we can help you get that clownfish to live a long, healthy life. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you get your clownfish is figure out, well, what am I going to feed it? Well, clownfish is an omnivore, and they're going to like meat for the most part of their diet. So if you got any like brine shrimp pellets or just carnivore pellets, they'll like that. They'll eat freeze-dried or actually, I'll say this: they'll eat frozen brine shrimp and like mysis shrimp. They like that. They also like plankton. They also do kind of like a spirulina, supplement in their diet. They're not going to just graze on algae, but they will do better if you add like some, freeze-dried seaweed and like maybe some spirulina pellets, something for an omnivore. That'd be great. If you've got saltwater angels, and you're feeding them because they're omnivores too, so that will help them also. But basically, if you're gonna feed them that, please feed them well, but not too well, of course, not to poison your tank. But a well-fed clownfish will be a healthy clownfish, and that health and that strength will help booster its immune system. And because in a tank, diseases are going to happen. It's just going to happen to you from time to time. Like me, I had ick breakout one time, and my clownfish got it, and they looked really bad, really bad. And one just was never a big eater, and it died unfortunately. But the other one always was the more aggressive eater. And once the ick dropped off of it, because the ick will last for a few days and then it'll drop off totally, go to the bottom, rehatch out, and then try to infect them again. That's where hopefully your medicine takes over when they drop out. And either I did well, treating the tank, or this fish just was way too healthy for it to get back on them and affect it. So it lived through very easy. It was a very easy thing to beat because all the other fish lived. And so that would be my recommendation there, is to feed them well, but you don't want to poison your tank for sure. So definitely the #1 thing I should say if you're going to keep a clownfish is to test your water with any saltwater fish. check that water, test it out, test it twice to make sure that you've got a good accurate reading. And that way anything that's going to happen, things happen fast in a tank, way more than they do in the ocean. So things in the ocean take forever to happen. In your tank though, just a day. It gets on them pretty quick, and they're really sensitive to any kind of changes. So that would be my recommendation, is to catch anything that you can just do a massive water change, or anything to fix, so you can be on top of it. Also you're going to wonder about aggression. What tank mates can I keep with them? Pretty much as long as it's not a predator, or is a much larger fish, or a really known aggressive fish, they'll do well. I've kept mine with some other damsels for the most part. I've got a 40-gallon breeder and another 2 40-gallon breeders, and they've always gotten along pretty well with any other fish, except when they get ready to spawn, they make a little den. There might be some aggression towards that fish whenever he gets into their territory. They're going to beat him up a little bit and chase him out, but for the most part, once he's gone, they're going to leave him alone, and they're just going about his way, and no big deal. The worst part of aggression that you may have to deal with is the aggression between themselves. When they establish, this will be a good thing for you if you're looking and wondering, how do I get a breeding pair? All clownfish start out as male, and if you put two together, one will grow larger and more aggressive, and that will turn into a female. And during this time, they'll fight a little bit, but for the most part, you got to keep an eye on that so that the fighting doesn't get to be too bad on one fish. That way, maybe you can save its life. It may just not be the right fish for that fish, or it may just be one that likes to be alone. You never know. And if you're going to get 2 clownfish, maybe one at one time, and then at a later date get another one, that's when you really got to watch out for that fighting, because when they're different sizes, it may get pretty bad. So sometimes they'll just go through a transition, no big deal, and they'll pair up, no problem. But sometimes it doesn't. So keep an eye on that. And if you're doing that, I would keep a screen on the tank, because while they're fighting and they're darting through the water, one of the biggest killers of clownfish is them jumping out of the water, trying to get away from one, and maybe the other one jumping right behind him, and they both wind up dead on the floor. So that'll be a really big care tip for you too, because I've lost several clownfish before I actually just broke down and got a screen, because every clownfish I got for a while just wound up on the floor, so I had no choice. Basically too, some aggression that you may have to worry about is the aggression towards you. Now I've got some tomato clowns. One's a tomato clown, one's a cinnamon clown, which they're supposed to be known for aggression, and they're pretty much the most docile clownfish I've ever had. They're really good. And I have 2 maroon clownfish though. They are just pure evil with fins. And if you look them in the face, if you see a maroon clownfish and you look him in the face, you'll know what I'm talking about. They just look mean. But they're beautiful fish, and I do love. They're probably my favorites actually. But with most clownfish, like as soon as you get them, and they're young, and you have your hands in the tank, and they'll swim into your hands and be real curious, and you'll think, oh, we're bonding, and you could just hold them and almost pet them. And then one day you stick your hand in the tank to clean, and then boom, you've got a bloody hand because they finned you. They don't want your hand in that tank anymore, and you won't be able to keep it in there, without something to kind of shoo them away. Those maroon clownfish are really strong, really powerful. I mean, they pack a wallop. So the worst cuts I've ever had from a fish is definitely from a maroon clownfish. But other than that, they're beautiful fish. They'll get along with any other fish for the most part. But there's just some of the tips that you'll have to look out for when you first get them. The next thing that I'm going to cover is anemones. That's one of their biggest. That's one of the biggest ways they feel safe, is to stay inside of an anemone. Now, an anemone will sting and paralyze and eat any other fish. So the clownfish are immune to this. They'll suck on the tentacles a little bit, and they'll build up an immunity. And either they build up an immunity, or they have a coating of this poison that they have on their body, and the anemone just reads it as that's part of me, and so it's no big deal. But It's a really good way for them to feel safe. And a lot of times if they're going to breed around that anemone. They want that safety. And so one of the most incredible things, my maroon clownfish, and hopefully if you ever get a clownfish anemone, you will get to see this. Is clownfish know that anemone needs to eat in order to survive, in order to give them safety. So they will feed the anemone. My maroon clownfish will feed it first. If I put pellets in the water or brine shrimp or anything, they'll get it, take it down to the anemone, feed him, and then they'll go feed. And that's just amazing to me. It's a really cool thing to see. I hope someday that they will not be camera shy where I can get it on video, but unfortunately so far, I haven't been able to do that. And sometimes hosting the anemone might take a while. There's all kinds of videos of little ways you can do it by sliding them down a tube, and the anemone, they will eventually host the anemone. Now, they might have trouble if you have any long tentacle corals, it's like a torch coral or a long tentacle plate coral or Duncans. I've even seen them do that to Duncans. Once they start to host that and feel comfortable there, it may be nearly impossible without taking that coral out, to get them to host the anemone. They may still do it, but it may be really hard if they have already hosted something else. But just my tip there is just to be patient, and it will happen. Don't try to force it and stress the fish. Just no stresses whatsoever is what I'm going to recommend you do, because that's a big fish killer. Because that weakens their immune system, and then diseases take over. So if you don't touch them, you don't try to force them into anything. Just let them do what they're going to do. It'll eventually happen. I promise. Next thing you want to do is like, what kind of water parameters do you need for them? Well, basically, if you have any other saltwater fish, they want those parameters. Just keep the same thing. The temperature is always about 75 to 78 degrees, somewhere around in there. But basically, like, water flow might be your biggest challenge. If you have a really high flow tank and you see your clownfish struggling, you've got too much flow for them. It might be great for your tank, but it's not great for them. So if they're struggling, it might be really hard for them to eat, really hard for them to swim around. They might get kind of stressed out over that. So that's something you need to look out for. And, your tank will tell you if you have too little flow, because you'll start getting detritus piled up and little dead spots here and there in the tank, and you don't want that. So your tank will tell you, what's the right flow. Either the fish will tell you what's too high, and the tank will tell you what's too low. So, it's pretty easy to figure out. With that being said, probably I'm going to go back and review, like, my biggest care tip for you is to test the water for sure. And I'm actually going to put get the screen on top of your tank till they get a little older. You may even want to keep it on there forever, because I haven't been feeding them and left them alone and had that screen and heard them hit the screen. So, I never take the screen off, unfortunately. I really wish I could and just leave it open, but it's just not worth it to me to lose a fish. So, keep up your testing. Definitely test, and keep up good water, parameters by changing out your water on a regular schedule. And, this fish is going to live about 3 to 5 years, basically, if you do a decent job. But if you do an exceptional job, they can live up to 20 years in your tank. If you have a bigger tank, they're going to do that. And in the wild, some say, some species of them live about 30 years, possibly. So, they're really long-living fish if you take care of them. And I've had mine right around the 5-year mark, and they seem really healthy. Knock on wood, wherever. So hopefully I'll keep them around for 15 to 20 years. But I hope that this helps you with if you have any questions that I haven't covered, feel free to ask me in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. And I really hope that this helped you. And if it did, please like and subscribe. I hate to do that. I'll beg and plead. I'll get down on my hands and knees if I have to, because that'll really help out my channel. I'm a small channel now trying to grow, so hopefully we'll get there one day. Hopefully I'll get that gold play button. So, I'm starting a little late in life, but, we'll get there, I'm sure. So I hope that you liked the video. I hope you liked the jokes. I know I'm not the best joke teller in the world, but, I have fun, so I hope you did too. So if you did, we'll see you next time, where I'm going to do freshwater angels on my next video. So If you're interested in that, just stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys later.